Welcome to Buffalo Rumblings Live. My name is Matt Warren. I'm joined tonight by Ben Lamers from Stampede Blue. That's SB Nation's uh, Indianapolis Colts blog, and he's here to talk about the Colts. Hi, Ben. How are you tonight?
Good. How are you doing?
We're doing okay over here in Bills land. We got Rex Ryan, LaShawn McCoy, no more Fred Jackson. This guy named Tyrod Taylor's our quarterback. Everything's gonna be fine, right? I'm just hoping for that. Now you've got some new names and new faces on your roster this year. One of our readers, and I apologize right now that I forgot who it was. I'll look back and say it again after this. One of our readers asked, "Does Frank Gore have anything left in the tank?" Were you able to see him in practice? Were you able to see him in some preseason games to be able to answer that?
In practice, he had some good carries. Certainly, a few where he broke through the defense looked much better than anything that we've seen from the running back position in the last 2 seasons. That's for sure. Preseason action, I think he ended up with 2 carries for 10 yards, which, again, based off the last 2 seasons, is an improvement. But in game action, we really haven't seen a whole lot from him. Hoping for the best, but really don't know.
That was Sergeant Major Thor, one of our regular commenters, was the one that asked that question about Frank Gore. But really, in a conversation about the Indianapolis Colts starts and ends at the quarterback position, at least in the last, 20 years or whatever. So let's talk about Andrew Luck. Is there any reason to believe that he won't be an MVP candidate this year and start against the Buffalo Bills?
I don't think so. I mean, all signs certainly pointing to that he should have MVP-type season. I think he should be the MVP this year, assuming all goes well, of course. But I see no reason why not. With certainly Ryan Grigson and the front office has loaded him up with weapons galore to throw the football to. And even if they don't stay healthy, they'll still have a lot of options for Andrew Luck to throw around the field. He should put up plenty of big numbers. The only thing that could hold him back a little could be the offensive line, like it has the past couple of years. If there's a lot of pressure on him, forces him to move around, get hit a little bit more. But other than that, he should be in line for a good season, I would think.
Yeah, our user Griff actually asked that. What's the Colts' offensive line situation? And then to follow that up, let's see here. Where are you? Ron from New Mexico. Buffalo has a great defensive line. What happened and a shaky secondary? What's going to happen to that offensive line when the Bills' defensive line starts coming after Andrew Luck?
Yeah, that'll be interesting. The Bills' front seven is terrifying, I think, for most of us Colts fans out there. Our offensive line, I mean, they're hoping for consistency this year, but at times, especially that right side, Jack Newhart, Todd Herman's just looked horrible at times in the preseason, which is definitely scary when you've got Marcel Darius and some of those other guys out there. Our old friend Jerry Hughes rushing the passer. If they can give Luck some time, I would be confident, but I'm worried that he'll be on the run a little bit on the game. Probably as the game goes on, see a little bit more shotgun if Frank Gore can't establish the run.
Actually, Marcel Darius isn't going to be playing in this game. He was suspended for some off-the-field incidents. So you guys get to dodge a bullet on that one. Corbin Bryant's been pretty well, but he's not has done pretty well, but he's not Marcel Darius. There's one more big addition to the Colts offense that I wanted to talk about, and it's at the wide receiver position. How has Andre Johnson changed what Andrew Luck and that offense can do?
I think it changed it quite a bit. For years, even dating back to the Peyton Manning era, myself, other fans certainly have clamored to have a big receiver out there to throw the ball to. Obviously, Reggie Wayne, Marvin Harrison, T.Y. Hilton. None of those guys are big, physical wide receivers that the Colts have never really had. Last year, I think we thought we had it with Hakeem Nicks, but we certainly didn't have it with Hakeem Nicks. I think he does bring that physical presence, someone who can go get a jump ball and be physical for some of those maybe short yard slant type situations. And certainly be a lot more physical, more than just the pure speed that all of the other wide receivers on the roster bring to the table. So it should add a little bit of a different dimension, especially I would think on those short yardage and goal line situations.
All right, let's switch to the other side of the ball because, I mean, it's pretty much a given that Andrew Luck's going to be good or at least have a good day, even though the Bills were able to shut down Aaron Rodgers last year and several other good quarterbacks. They also had some blips, and and they're probably going to have some growing pains this year back under Rex Ryan. So let's talk about what's going to happen when the Bills are on offense, because that's what most Bills fans are kind of really wondering. Greg Roman is coming in and installed this brand new offense. Tyrod Taylor is there to take over at quarterback. We really don't know what's going to happen, but what's going on with the Colts defensive line? There's been some turnover there because of injury and stuff like that.
Yeah, the defensive line is certainly going to be a concern. Kendall Langford is really the only player who has any palpable NFL experience. Rest of that, 4 rookies, 2 starting, according to the depth chart that just came out about an hour or so ago, which is either potential, sure, but it's definitely scary to have that kind of youth on the line, especially in the interior, where certainly your teams, the Patriots and so forth, just handed the ball off and ran right up the gut, and Colts couldn't stop them at all. So it's certainly concerning to have those young guys in there.
You know, that's what the Bills are planning on doing, right? They're planning on handing the ball off to whoever it is, LaShawn McCoy or Boobie Dixon or Carlos Williams, whoever's healthy, Brace Brown, and having them run behind Jerome Felton right up the middle.
Oh, yeah. I mean, certainly, that's definitely a concern. Especially, my biggest concern is going to be if LaShawn McCoy plays in the game. I think that's going to be very interesting to see. He certainly adds another dimension to the offense. And in general, Tyrod Taylor, running quarterbacks historically have given the Colts defense fits and problems. So I'm definitely concerned about him back there, especially I haven't watched many of the Bills games this preseason, but if they start running any of that read option, I think that could really give the defense a lot of problems if they go that route.
They didn't show a ton of it, but they showed some of it with Taylor. Most of the time he did his damage was with sitting in the pocket and then being able to escape and then keeping his eyes downfield. And then if there was space, finding the space and getting 10, 15, 20 yards, scoring touchdowns, things like that when the pass coverage turned their back and things like that. But it's going to be interesting to see what Greg Roman pulls out. And that was what I was going to ask you about next is Greg Roman loves tight ends. They actually kept 5 tight ends on their initial roster. They cut one of them today and are now down to 4 tight ends on the roster. What's going to happen when Charles Clay breaks off into a route? Is he going to be shadowed by a linebacker or a safety? Are they going to bring a corner on him? What have they done in the past against athletic tight ends that can kind of do everything like that?
Last year was a little bit of both, especially in the start of the season. We saw some linebacker coverage on a lot of the tight ends. It certainly didn't work at all. A lot of tight ends had big games. Julius Thomas, I think, had 3 touchdowns in week 1, and just kind of snowballed from there. Last year, if the defense put anyone other than a linebacker on one of the tight ends, it was LaRon Landry, which also never worked. But obviously he's gone this year, so I would imagine, especially with the depth at the inside linebacker position, and C.O. Moore and Nate Irving are backups on the team, I would imagine probably you're going to see a lot of linebackers shadowing the tight ends.
Oh, I like the sound of that personally. Ron asks, how has Chuck Pagano fared against rookie quarterbacks? He calls Tyrod Taylor a rookie quarterback because he's making his first start, but does Pagano have some sort of track record that he's been able to confuse or, I don't know, otherwise slow down rookie quarterbacks?
I was trying to think when you asked that question about recent history of facing rookie or younger quarterbacks. Last year, Blake Bortles saw his first action against our defense. Looked good. To say whether or not that was because he came in the middle of the game or anything else, I'm not sure. If you would consider Case Keenum last year, I know he wasn't a rookie, but got his first start against the Colts and just absolutely torched the defense, which was a little disappointing to say the least. Other than that, most of Pagano's time, at least with Indianapolis, has not been facing off against rookie quarterbacks. For the most part, we saw Russell Wilson his second year, Robert Griffin in the preseason, which doesn't count. So really, Bortles, Keenum are the main ones that we've seen. And this year, well, Mariota and Winston both coming to town. And then if you would consider E.J. Manuel, would be another one. So there's not a whole lot of track record there against rookie quarterbacks.
Okay, let's talk quickly about the secondary. Sammy Watkins should be healthy and ready to go. Robert Woods should be back and ready to go. We're not quite sure about Percy Harvin and his role, at least for week 1, but the Bills are going to have some guys that can do damage in the secondary. What's the What's that group of players look like for the Colts?
Yeah, the secondary was going to be interesting. I was looking at the Bills depth chart before we started this, and the receivers certainly concerned me to see a lot of those players out there. Vontae Davis should be fine for whoever he's going to cover on his side of the field. That should not be an issue. I wouldn't be too worried about that from our defense's perspective. Greg Toller, I don't know. There's a lot of speed on the Buffalo's wide receivers positions, regardless of who he'll be facing. Kohler has gotten burned lots of times, hasn't looked great in the preseason. And after that, oh man, the safety is a huge question mark. Backup corners are, other than Darius Butler, they're young and experienced, don't know what to expect. I could be concerned if Buffalo decides to really throw the ball, especially if they throw it away from Vontae Davis.
So we're talking shootout here then, right? I mean, the Bills are going to be able to run up the middle, is what you're saying. You said before. They're questionable at some of the secondary positions. They're going to put a linebacker on Charles Clay. It sounds like the Rex Ryan era is going to start off with a bang on the offensive side of the ball. Is that something that you can foresee happening?
I could foresee it. I think a lot of it will come down to how Tyrod Taylor plays. I think that's going to be very key. We know that the preseason is very different than the regular season. So it'll depend a little bit what Gano and the defense decide to throw at him and see right away. But I think if Tyrod Taylor plays well, it could be a shootout. I know a lot of Colts fans think the secondary is going to be fine. I'm a lot less sure about that. So we'll see. In the defense, the running game, we'll see how a lot of those rookies are starting on the interior of the line. But I think it all is going to come down, at least on the Bills side, to Tyrod Taylor.
Okay. There was a couple more questions I wanted to hit on before we let you go. The first one was from Griff. Are Colts fans baffled by how well Jerry Hughes has played in Buffalo?
Oh, Jerry Hughes. Yeah, he was horrible in Indianapolis, that's for sure. I would say I don't think surprised. I think we all saw the talent. I certainly wasn't surprised. Sometimes, as we've seen many times in the NFL, it's just a change of scenery that does a player good. I would argue that, especially in the Bill Polian era, the Colts did not utilize him very well. Tried to use Hughes as a down lineman, kind of a Dwight Freeney 2.0. His 1 year in the 3-4, best season in Indianapolis. So I wouldn't say that's surprised. Maybe just, I don't know if bitter is the right word, that he's finally doing it elsewhere, though, than when he didn't do anything in Indianapolis.
Well, we're glad to have him. He's certainly been creating some havoc in the backfield, and he's probably going to be chasing Andrew Luck around a ton on Sunday. There was another question, and it's kind of a mixture of a few different questions we saw in the comments, but if the Bills are able to move Andrew Luck off of his spot and get him running, is he going to be able to hit those throws on the run? Is he going to be able to pick up huge chunks of yards with his legs? Or if they get him off his spot and moving, is that going to fluster him and force him to make, I don't know, bad throws or bad decisions?
Luck can hit his throws when he's on the move. He's certainly proven that. He's probably not going to rip off too many longer scrambles. I certainly would prefer to throw the football. I think the only thing that you might see happening, he can make the throws, that's fine, but every once in a while, if Luck gets off the spot a little bit, he'll just try to force a few more throws, make some plays that he probably shouldn't. Last year, big issue was not taking sacks when he should have on trying to throw the ball. So that could be the only thing, is that sometimes he'll try to do a little too much if he's forced off the spot, try to make some throws happen that really shouldn't happen, and that's sometimes where he makes some mistakes.
The Bills have kind of a young offensive line, an offensive line that hasn't played a ton together just this offseason, really, and even last season made some pretty big mistakes, and there's a lot of question marks. How are the Colts going to pressure or try to get pressure on the Bills and Tyrod Taylor?
Historically, the defense has not brought that many blitzes. Recent years, a little bit more, but I think primarily they'll rely on edge rushers to get a lot of that pressure. Eric Walden has looked phenomenal this preseason, coming in at outside linebacker, so I would expect him to get some pressure. Depending on what reports you read, who you talk to, Robert Mathis might see some action this week. I'm not so sure. if he will, but I think they will primarily try to generate pressure, especially on first and second downs, just using a regular four-man rush. And maybe on third down, you'll see a few blitzes, maybe from the safety spot. But otherwise, it'll probably be primarily those front four that they're going to use to get pressure.
What else do we need to know about this weekend's matchup? Colts Bills. Is there a special teams edge? Is there something happening in the locker room that's gonna, I don't know, make Andrew Luck throw a punch at Frank Gore or something like that? What kind of stuff aren't we hearing about, or didn't I ask about?
Special teams. I think you brought that up. I think that could be key. I know I've heard a few things that the kicker situation in Buffalo has been a little bit up in the air recently, and especially with the new rules, which, side note, I don't like at all. But to the extra point, that could certainly play a factor. I think we don't know how that's going to affect a lot of the games yet because we haven't seen it in action in the regular season. Otherwise, I'm certainly kickoffs, punting. Pat McAfee, in my opinion, is one of, if not the best punters in the game. Certainly would give the Colts the edge there. But kick return, if we don't get those touchbacks, I'm not sure who Buffalo's going to have back there. But the Colts special teams coverage units did not look that good on the preseason, especially in the first two games against Chicago and Philadelphia. They really didn't look that good on the coverage unit. So especially if you've got your Percy Harvin back there or something like that, that could give Buffalo an edge if they're able to get any of those returns.
Yeah, it seems like everybody that's had been punting or punt returning is injured. Whether it's Percy, I don't actually think he took any reps for the Bills this offseason at punt returner, but there was like Leotis McKelvin and Percy Harvin. They're down to Marcus Thigpen, I think, is the guy at the top of the punt return depth chart right now, but he's a shifty and really quick guy, and he can move upfield. One last question from Fernando, who is in Brazil. I have a fellow Brazilian friend who's a Colts fan and a really big Vontae Davis fan who says Davis hasn't allowed a touchdown in more than a year. Is this true, and can Sammy Watkins break that streak?
Statistically, I suppose it is true that no one who Vontae Davis was in man-to-man coverage scored last year. I think Vontae Davis could very well continue that. It might not be Sammy Watkins, but I wouldn't be surprised if someone from Buffalo were to get the better of him, just mainly because Vontae Davis didn't see a lot of action in the preseason. I know I've gotten some ridicule in some articles I've written about this. I don't expect him to have as good of a season as he did this past year. So whether it could be Watkins, someone else, it wouldn't surprise me if one of the Bills receivers were to get past him, especially with a lot of the speed that they've got going on out there.
All right, well, thank you. We've been talking with Ben Lamers from StampedeBlue.com, and I'm sure we'll be doing some more stuff with them over the course of this week as the Bills and Colts get ready to open their season this Sunday at Ralph Wilson Stadium in Orchard Park. Thanks for coming on, Ben.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It was a lot of fun.